When it comes to the Akatsuki ranks, there are three members that are very contentious when it comes to the power scaling of the group and where they scale in the Narutoverse. Those three members are Itachi, Obito, and lastly, who I will be covering in today's video, Pain. Pain, although being seen as the leader of the Akatsuki and shown to be the strongest Akatsuki member based off narrative, tends to be a very downplayed character by the Naruto debate community, where people believe that maybe Itachi can defeat Pain or Kisame, or some people even believe Kakuzu can defeat Pain. Or in the most extreme circumstances, there are people in the debate community that believe Deidara can defeat Pain. The Naruto meta is constantly changing, from people finding new promotional material that gives new insight on the new scaling, or looking at Naruto games from literally 2003. So with the meta constantly changing, Pain scaling in the series has changed a lot as well, and scaling Pain in itself can be hard to do because of how little he does in the actual series. The only fights Pain participates in is against Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Naruto. And in some filler and extra material from the games, Pain fights Six-Tails Jinchuriki, Utakata, Kakuzu, and a small interaction with Orochimaru. And on top of that, people blatantly forget the variables that went into these fights that made Pain seem weaker, like Pain was restricted in what he could do in the Rain Village, or that Pain was heavily fatigued against Sage Mode Naruto. This scaling is going to be very straightforward and very simple, and will hopefully be the definitive scaling of Pain and where he'd rank in strength of the Akatsuki. This will be a series on the channel where I say how strong every Akatsuki member is. If you do enjoy the video, please do consider subscribing and leaving a like and help support the channel. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Pain, or Nagato Uzumaki, is described as being a natural talent by Jiraiya, as he was able to learn every ninjutsu Jiraiya taught him, and because of the Rinnegan possessed every change in chakra nature. Jiraiya had actually thought Nagato was the child of prophecy and the one destined to either save the world or destroy it. That is, until Jiraiya had heard rumors of Nagato's death by the hands of Hanzo the Salamander, but those rumors were of course wrong. After Hanzo ambushed the original Akatsuki, and Nagato's best friend Yahiko killed himself. Nagato was a very unstable and soft child growing up because of his harsh living conditions and witnessing the death of his parents at the hands of the Leaf Shinobi, who were seen as the moral faction in the Second Great Ninja War, and all he wanted to do was protect his friends Yahiko and Konan. Nagato murdered and destroyed Danzo Zanbu, who were led by Hanzo. While doing this, Nagato would sacrifice his mobility for the power of the Gedo statue, the seventh path of pain, or the outer path. Hanzo would manage to get away, and Nagato would never walk again. Yahiko had entrusted Nagato with his will of fire, and Nagato essentially made the promise to him that he'd change the world. Nagato would go on to use his Rinnegan to its full capabilities and the full extent in which he could. Nagato would essentially take corpses of Rogue Shinobi and his best friend Yahiko and use them as puppets, which could all use separate Rinnegan abilities, while Nagato controlled them from a distance. Pain and Obito would then go on to start forming the new Akatsuki, where Pain's first objective would be to beat the Rogue Shinobi Kakuzu and have him join the Akatsuki. Pain, with just a Diva Path, also known as Tendo Pain, would go on to beat Kakuzu so bad that Kakuzu thought he was being toyed with and joined the Akatsuki. Kakuzu was the same person who would be able to beat the Seven-Tails Jinchuriki Fu and be able to tank an attack from a fully transformed Perfect Jinchuriki Yugito. Soon after this, just the Diva Path alone would go on to fight against Orochimaru and beat him with no to zero difficulty, and after Orochimaru is blown away by one Shinra Tensei from the Diva Path, Pain tells Orochimaru he's stronger than him, and Orochimaru actually agrees with this. And not only does he tell the Diva Path he's weaker than it, because one could argue Orochimaru is manipulative and charismatic, but Orochimaru actually has an inner dialogue where he confirms to himself that he is weaker than just the Diva Path. Orochimaru was the same person who would go on to fight an old Hiruzen, and an old Hiruzen was still considered to be the strongest of the 5 Kage. This would include 4th Raikage A, Rasa, Inoki, and Yagura. There seems to be this misconception that Orochimaru was bloodlusted in the battle while Hiruzen was holding back, which is not true. The reason for this is Orochimaru could have killed Hiruzen but starts crying, so he stabs himself to get the resolve to battle at 100%, and he says he's feeling better now, but literally in the next page Hiruzen says that's not true and you do not want to fight me. And we know Hiruzen was fatigued and holding back for the majority of the battle via himself and Enma. As the battle comes to a closing, Orochimaru and Hiruzen start scrapping with each other, and they're relative in speed, but Hiruzen does actually get the edge on him and knock him over. And the data book lends credence to this by showing that panel and saying that they fought equally with one another. To a normal reader, this would seem like, okay, so both Orochimaru and Hiruzen are relative to one another, one holding back, and it's not like Orochimaru's skills relative to full-powered Hiruzen. But what people don't realize is Hiruzen right before this guy mental amp from thinking about his old students and states that he's bloodlusted and he will kill Orochimaru no matter what. So this would mean Orochimaru kept up with a mental amped and bloodlusted Hiruzen. One argument I could see a lot of people making is that it's highly suggested by a Hiruzen that for the past 13 years Orochimaru has been training, so the Orochimaru that Tendo Pain beat is weaker than the Orochimaru that fought against Hiruzen. But you'll see that if Orochimaru did get stronger, it wasn't drastic as we go to the next line of scaling, and that's Jiraiya. Jiraiya is stated and implied many times in the manga and the data books to be equal or relative to Orochimaru, and I believe that it should be base Jiraiya and not him with Sage Mode. The first one is very simple, and that's that Sage Mode had not been introduced into the series by the time these statements were made. The second reason is Jiraiya and Orochimaru have been shown to be relative to each other in base. For instance, when Jiraiya was drugged by Tsunade and Orochimaru had lost all his ninjutsu from his arms being sealed by Hiruzen, Jiraiya was able to react and block an attack from Orochimaru. Another thing that lends credence to this is that it's stated in the data book that all the Sannin summonings stalemated one another. And lastly, Jiraiya was badly damaged and near death against Four Tails Naruto, and we see that a sick and no arms Orochimaru, though fended off against Four Tails Naruto, was shown to be weaker. This obviously was a weaker Orochimaru than the one that fought Hiruzen, but the power gap is likely not that drastic, as it's not like Orochimaru scales to the full 9 tails, as Orochimaru stated that a Hiruzen from 10 years ago would have been able to beat him easily. Hiruzen from 12 years ago was able to scrap with the 9 tails and push out of the village. And it wasn't until after Orochimaru had fought Four Tails Naruto that his body had finally reached its limit. From all this, we can come to the conclusion that Orochimaru is likely stronger than base Jiraiya, but they are in the same tier of fighter. And the Preta path, a weaker path than the Diva path, could react to Sage Mode Jiraiya and absorb his giant Rasengan, but we'll get more to that when we go over Pain speed. The paths of Pain would then go on to beat base Jiraiya, making it consistent for Pain to be stronger than Jiraiya, who scales relative to Orochimaru, who Pain beat. And Orochimaru for a moment fought equally with a bloodlusted and mental amped Hiruzen, and this is the same Hiruzen who was regarded as the strongest of the 5 Kage. Then, during the long-awaited Pain arc, or Invasion arc, Pain was able to deal with Kakashi pretty easily, and Kakashi was the same person who was able to tank several attacks from Akatsuki members like Kakuzu, who I said before was able to tank an attack from the Two Tails. Tendo Pain would then go on to destroy the entire Leaf Village, which would go down as one of the most iconic moments in the series and one of the biggest displays in destructive capacity in the series. This feat came out at about Island Level to Island Level Plus. Just for reference, that's about how much a normal tailed Beast Bomb calcs at, excluding Naruto and B, who's both come out at Small Country Level. Naruto then shows up with Sage Mode, and he's stated by Fukasaku to have surpassed Minato and Jiraiya. People's main contentions come from the Minato part, and their main contention is by saying that this would be referring to Sage Mode, but what people don't understand here is that Naruto is not a perfect sage at this point. He becomes one after the 8 Tails disappears when he breaks out of Pain's Shibaku Tensei. Although the series doesn't give an exact definition for what a quote-unquote perfect sage is, to my knowledge and my best interpretation of it would be being able to absorb nature energy in a small window of time without outside help of frogs or clones. Minato, although he says it takes long for him to enter Sage Mode and claims he's not good at it, it is directly contradicted by the fact he enters it in seconds. Or you could argue Minato is known for being modest, as in Storm Generations when sparring with Jiraiya, Minato wins, and he believes Jiraiya let him win even though Jiraiya admits to himself Minato is much stronger. Something that lends credence to this idea of Sage Mode Naruto being stronger than Minato is that in the war arc, around the time Naruto gets KCM2, Kurama stated Minato pales in comparison compared to Naruto, but the important thing is he says surpassed you a while ago, and the first time it was mentioned Naruto surpassed Minato was in the Pain arc. From here we can say Pain's AP, or attack potency, would scale above Kakuzu, who could hold his own against the Two Tails. It would scale above Orochimaru, who fought on relative terms with a bloodlusted and mental amped Hiruzen, the same Hiruzen who was considered the strongest of the 5 Kage, and this would be consistent as Pain was able to beat Jiraiya, who was stated multiple times to be relative to Orochimaru. And even when he was heavily fatigued, so much to the point where he couldn't use any of the Diva Path's abilities and had his lifespan shortened, was relative to, if not stronger than, Sage Mode Naruto. The same Sage Mode Naruto who was stronger than Minato, Minato being the same person who could hurt Obito.
All of that being said, thank you for watching the video. And if you want, you can like and subscribe and share and so on this video. But before that, I want to get something off of my chest. I've been bullied and discriminated against because I got the balls to say what nobody else has the balls to say, which is that pain beats Kakazu. Since day one I said that I've been vindicted and persecuted for my opinion, and I'm tired of it. So that being said, I'm gonna leave YouTube. I don't enjoy doing videos. I mean, I like it, but I'm not crazy about it. So I just want to tell you that because and this video was supposed to be longer. I was supposed to make more about like the speed and the durability of pain, but I just got lazy and I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm just gonna probably leave YouTube because, well, there's a bunch of things. One, I suck. Two, Cracktoon, which you should check out, has more subs than me, and that makes me sad. And three, I just want to go to college and do other stuff. So, just so you know, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna stop doing it. That's why I only made like the attack and power version of part, sorry, of this video, and that's about it. Uh, I'm sorry. This is a goodbye from me, from heart to hearts. Is that the expression? I don't think it is. Anyway, my name is Khetzy, and I salute you. Goodbye.